So, Archie, in the last segment, you were basically walking us through both the theory of the case on the plaintiff's side, why look to essentially make counties, municipalities whole, towns whole, and how to sort of calculate that going forward in the future, because this is a situation where you have a cohort of people who have become addicted to these opioids. They're going to need treatment throughout their lives, and even in the event that some are able to end their addiction, the implications of that addiction are going to last throughout their lives. You also told us the statutory obligations that exist on the distributors, that largely speaking, doctors and pharmacies that were knowingly involved in the overprescription of these opioids have been policed by various agencies or either shut down, whatnot. The people walking around without having any accountability, with literally billions of dollars in their pockets, are the manufacturers and the distributors. The distributors, and some of whom were up in front of Congress this week. But I just want to when we broke, you had basically worked out how these distributors had avoided meeting their statutory obligations. And you said that they would report to the DEA suspicious activity and make it seem like they were starting investigations, but really not doing any legitimate investigations. They were just basically, it was almost as if they were reported like, hey, we went outside and started howling at the moon for a half hour last night. Have we fulfilled our obligation here? And it was almost like they were slow walking this, because on the other side of the ledger, they're just seeing their dollars stack up every day. They don't do anything.
Yeah, they literally thumbed their nose at the obligations they had under the law. And the tragic piece of this, Sam, is 60,000 since 2000. Over 500,000 people have died of opioid overdose. And when you compare the conduct of these companies, remember McKesson, Cardinal Healthcare, and AmerisourceBergen supply 85% of the prescription drugs. Those big three, and so those are the ones that were primarily testifying in front of Congress yesterday. And what did they do? They did exactly what they always did. They said, well, we reported hundreds of thousands of suspicious orders. Well, filing a letter saying this is a suspicious order, but taking no action to halt or investigate is not complying with their obligation under the law. And they just blatantly violated it. You saw yesterday as they testified on Capitol Hill, I think the Cardinal exec tried to make some sort of apology, but really and truly all they did is blamed it on the doctors. They blamed it on the DEA. They did not take responsibility for their unbelievably unconscionable, egregious conduct and just dumping billions and billions of pills on our society. It's incomprehensible to me.
You know, I saw some of that testimony, as written testimony by the CEO of Cardinal, and there was a statement to the effect of like, you know, if we could make the decisions again, we would make slightly different decisions, choices in that instance. And it seems to me that not only were they aware of the situation going on, they were actively attempting to skirt their obligations or to change their obligations, right? I mean, weren't they spending at this time a ton of money also on lobbying to get their reporting responsibilities diminished to the DEA?
Yeah, they spent over $100 million lobbying to get the law changed in the 2016-2017 cycle. But you know, they talked yesterday. It was just so incredible to me. They talked yesterday. They now have these new systems in place, as though we're in like 1899. And technology, you know, there's not even an airplane and manufacturer yet, and they're wanting us to believe that somehow they were in this Ozzie and Harriet. Of course, the audience probably doesn't know who that is, but some 1950s, you know, melodrama with no technology. It is ludicrous to think that only in the last 2 years could they have come up with a system of adequately monitoring and policing their own shipments. It's just it's just a blatant lie, and they're asking us to believe it again.
And so on a Thursday of this week, you were in court for a hearing. Tell us about that hearing and where the I guess what the status of cases against these entities are.
Well, it's in a very preliminary stage. We have been consolidated in front of Judge Dan Polster in Cleveland. And there's just really a sort of a brand new engagement between the plaintiffs and the defendants. We haven't even, at this point, sent out requests for information. We're finalizing the process of doing that and meeting and conferring with the defendants. And so it's really at a very preliminary stage at this point. And the judge just is, having us come in to report the status and see if there are any disputes that exist that he might be able to clear up for us. But so it's really early. The only thing I will tell you is the case has been set for trial in March of 2019 regarding Cleveland, the city, and Cuyahoga County, the county in which Cleveland sits, and also Summit County, which is where Akron is. And those cases are set for trial in 2019. So we are moving quickly and working hard, but it's a very early part of the stage of discovery, and nothing of really note will happen tomorrow at the hearing.
And so, tell us how this works. If you take one case to trial, and it's about Cuyahoga County, let's say, and the ultimately the court finds in favor of the plaintiff. There is an algorithm that is structured. There were this many pills that ended up in this county. There were this many addicts. We're going to anticipate these type of costs based upon this matrix of potential societal ills that will come from it. Is that basically the way it's designed?
Exactly. Yeah. And then, so what you have in retrospect is you have the law enforcement expenses, you have first responder expenses, you have expenses for foster care, juvenile courts, all related to drug addiction and the problems associated with that. And so then you also extrapolate into the future. And you said it right. There's it's a matrix with certain metrics. For example, how many people live here? What percentage is addicted? What are the levels of addiction? What is the medically assisted treatment for life of the people that are addicted? What will be the future costs of law enforcement and first responders and coroners and drug courts and foster care? And what we do is we go out and hire the best experts there are in healthcare financing and pharmacology, addiction specialists, and get a real life projection of what it's going to cost the cities, the counties, and the towns, and present that to the court for the court's verification that it's a legitimate projection based on scientific and medical certainty. And then we ask for the remedy to help pay for the city. And then what happens, there'll be a result in that case, and hopefully we'll prevail, and we will use those metrics to apply to the other cities, counties, and towns throughout the United States to hopefully, resolve the case on a global basis.
Archie Lamb, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Fascinating stuff.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, Sam.